Hello everyone, good to see you. We are X+. Sylvia and Bartosz are product owners of the solutions that we'll be showing you today. I'm Artur, and we are from Poland. Just as an introduction, just to give us a little credibility, we are focusing on dynamics, finance and operations, finance and supply chain management. Since the very beginning, X+ is from X++ from the original. So we are here today to talk about the upgrade process and with some tools that we've developed last years that can help this process to be improved a lot. So we are doing upgrades and implementations since 20 years now. If you have some experience with these upgrades, if you'd like to share some funny, sad or happy stories about that process, share with us. We have some giveaways for those of you who would be courage enough to share those stories with us. So I think we can start if Mark could move forward. If we can go. All right. So this is an upgrade process, like the high-level perspective. Before you even decide to start with the upgrade, you need to prepare. So within the analysis and preparations, you need to take the decision whether to upgrade or not, whether you have resources, whether you have enough knowledge in your organization, whether your organization is ready from change resistance perspective. Then you are going to the upgrade. You have some challenges regarding the methodology, all the process, because it will be exhausting. It might take months or years, and then you are moving to the maintenance. And on each of those stages, you will encounter some challenges, you will encounter some problems. So if we may move forward first, then we've listed some of those challenges and problems that you probably face, and of course, there will be a resistance for a change. You need to, as I mentioned, analyze whether you have resources and competences in order to start this process, to decide whether you want to do this by yourself or you want to involve some vendors, some integrators for this purpose. You need to decide what strategy to take when going from IX 2012 to 365, whether you want to technically upgrade, whether you want to re-implement, or whether you support something like hybrid in between of those methodologies. When you are in upgrade, you need to take decisions regarding methodology. Then you need to, empower yourself with the tools, with the methods that we'll be discussing. One of them, those today. How to simplify it just a little, maybe, or sometimes maybe heavily. You need to, when talking about the problems and challenges, one of those we've learned that are critical are how to involve business users to the process, how to make sure UAT phases are performed properly, how to make sure that the go-live phase is secured, both from the functional and technical perspective, because we all know that both challenges are actually around this space. And in the maintenance, of course, everyone knows one version in 365. You need to, as we call it, assess and hypercare phases, how to administrate the application, because everyone moving from on-prem to cloud is expecting, clients are expecting that it will be easier from the administration and IT perspective. And actually, there are many problems that we need to learn how to cope and how to mitigate risk. So, what you can move forward. No worries. 1 second. So, within those challenges and within different processes, you may think when mitigating this risk. As I started, we've created a couple of solutions. We are focusing on ISV's modules for finance and operation, but two of them, actually several of them, are based on those two capabilities we created for several years. First one is that we created tools that allows you to record everyone on the application, every step, every action taken by the user on the interface of the IX 2012 or finance and operations, supply chain management, might be recorded. We are gathering this information, we are analyzing this information, and we can use this information for specific purposes. We'll go into these details later on. And on the other side, we might record users like on these attended mode. So same as with RSAT, we might record user and then use this script for different purposes. We probably, you know, probably RSAT, so we will try to show you how different this with our approaches than with the RSAT. So starting with the preparation and considering this tool for the mass anonymization, we, frankly speaking, we are able to create a heat map of the usage of the system. So, as you know, when upgrading from 2012 to 365, it's quite critical to understand what is being used right now. So to define what is must to be upgraded to the newer application, and if we consider that we can record everyone on X2012, we can understand how the application was being used. So from here, Sylvia, product owner responsible for Executive Explorer, will follow.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sylvia. As I said, I would talk to you about our Executive Explorer in terms of process discovery, right? So, yeah, the very first step you do when you think about upgrading your system is to actually decide what do you want, what processes there are, and which of them you want to bring with you to the new system, right? But well, with this first step comes a lot of problems or little issues, because how do you learn what processes there are? Do you have documentation? Well, if you do, well, what are the problems with documentation, right? It may be not up to date. It may be well, it may not exist even at all. Yeah, there are such cases that documentation is a myth with implementation. It may be not completed. It may not involve all the processes there are. It may be not detailed enough for you to know actually what needs to be done on the level of the process in the system, but how should it be transferred. Well, you are not really able to take from documentation how relevant it is, and whether it includes all the details that you need. So documentation, nice to have it, but yeah, it is risky. The second thing, you can ask users, right? You can go to the users, ask them, well, what processes are the most important for you? How should they be transferred? How should they be transferred, but what is their importance to the users? What they look like, so that we learn how the processes work, so we know what to do. But still, there are problems such as it is very time-consuming to talk to them, and everybody, if you were to talk to the user, they would be talking from the subjective point of view, right? They will say what is important for them, not on the level of on the whole organization. And yeah, to transfer everything is also a no-go, right? Because you may prepare in your AX 2012 lots of forms, lots of modifications. You may work on them really a lot, but then it may turn out that they are no longer being used. So why should you spend money and time to transferring something that is no longer used? And especially since it would impact on the cost of the upgrade and of the time needed. So what we've created is a tool, Executive Explorer, which provides you a reliable source of information, reliable source of truth. It involves process mining and machine learning, and it looks for actually common behavioral patterns in your dynamics, in your AX, and finds processes there. And how does it work? It works a bit like Google Analytics. So there is a plugin which records all the activities, not only logs, all the activities in the system, what the user does. The user doesn't feel a thing. Like with Google Analytics, actually. The impact of the performance is around 3 or 4%. So it's not noticeable. It records everything. If you are just clicking on something or you are getting lost in the system, it is all recorded. It's also recorded the performance of your PC. For example, you might have old PC and it works much slower than some other users. And it may impact your performance, so it is also recorded. The performance of the system itself. So when all this data is collected, it is stored in a database of the customer database. It is not stored by Microsoft or by us. Just simply you may decide that you want it on-premise or on a cloud solution. And the data is being analyzed by our algorithm. And what our algorithm does, it looks for common behavioral patterns between those in this data, and groups those patterns into processes. And also additionally looks for potential for automation. So if there is no such, that somebody makes a click, let's say they click on OK, save and close, those three buttons. This is a simple case. It could be done, with one click, right? It does not need 3 steps. So it could be this part of the process could be quickly and easily automated. Okay, so if you could, the next slide, okay. So let's say you use our tool to find all the processes. Now you need to know, first of all, which ones you want to transfer. So also it's also easily done with help of our tool because it shows you how often the process is being used. So you may quickly find top 20, let's say, processes and focus on them. And the rest of the processes may be, transferred later on, right? You do not need the go live phase. And but when you have already located the processes which you want to transfer, it doesn't mean that you should transfer them as they are. Because very often the version as is it may be inefficient or not really intuitive to use. It may be bugged. It may require some polishing, if you like, to bring a better version of it to your new system. And it may also turn out that the process, even though important to your organization, is so ineffective that it needs to be rebuilt from scratch. But this is what you will be able to see with our tool. And also, it will also show you how to choose between processes, right? Because the balance is needed here. Because it's say that it is as wrong to optimize everything as to optimize nothing, right? There are some processes which are really, really bad, would really require optimization, but they are so rarely used that you do not need to, worry about it now. You may come back to it later. And and so maybe I will show you now the tool itself. Just not speaking and show a slide. Do you see here? Okay. So what do we see here is a list and a table view of all the processes which were found in the system. This is a test environment, the data, it's not perfect, but for the purpose of showcase, I think it's enough. So what do we see here are the processes, the names. Our solution automatically gives the names of the processes it's found. Of course, you can edit it if you want to, have your own process naming. The area in which the process occurs, and quite important information, the number of executions of the process. So this way, by filtering by the number of executions, you may find those which are most often used. It was also mean that those which you used to take into focus at first, right? And also the number of users who use this process, average step each process takes, and the potential for automation, where 1 means low potential, 10 means great potential. And there's also additional information, but I think for now it'd be better if we dig into the process, which is at the top of the list. And what details can we see there? Okay, so at the top, left, there are KPIs. Well, the values similar to those shown in the table, the number of executions, number of users, and the cost. You can, of course, if you know, if you want to know how much each process costs, you can provide this information about the employee costs, and it will be shown in the value that how much it really costs this process. Now, below we have a process graph.
Sorry, just a quick question on that.
Yeah.
So that was in terms of, let's say, it's an AP process or something like that. And you've got AP charts for doing that process. You could say, okay, they're going to cost me some type of average cost, and then you could work out based on the number of transactions.
Exactly. It will count. If you know how much it costs per hour, it will calculate later and show you the whole cost of the process. That's right.
So if we assign the costs to the number of executions and the length of the process, you might actually sort out those processes which are the most costly.
Most expensive.
Exactly. If you are looking for automation, optimization, frankly speaking, know where to start usually.
Okay, moving on, here's a process graph. It's quite simple actually here, just to do, some of those slides maybe, some of graphs may be more complex, but here it's actually easy to interpret, easy to read. In yellow, this marks the start, the beginning, and the end of the process. And as you follow the arrows, you see what steps are involved there, right? On which table, what is being clicked on, what are the steps being made. And what is interesting here, that those bold lines show you the most often used path for this process. And those thinner lines, those ones, are the ones that are, alternative variants of the process. So both the core of the process is the same, but there may be some additional or alternative steps involved. So here you can take a look at it briefly and see what is here. And also you may analyze variant by variant by using the variants section on the right. So if I check on this first one, I see how the graph looks like for the first one. I can check more than one, but if I want to just simply go through few, I see exactly for each of these variants how they are executed. And also there is some information about average steps they take, how long they perform, the costs. So when you are looking for potential for the process to transfer, you may take into consider analyzing these variants, because one of them may be perfect, and this one you would like to transfer to the new system. And it will bring the most value, will be the most optimal one. Yeah, and what more can you do? There are some statistics also involved. You can check each and every execution of the process in the system. So if you want to go even more into details, you can check that this user is here, conducted this performance, executed this process, and see here exactly the steps they've done. So everything they've done, they clicked on name, then they clicked on customer account, and how does each of these steps, at what time was being done, how long it took, the client time and the server time, is what I mentioned before, that we recognize how long the server, the Microsoft side took to respond, and how much the equipment, the computer of the user. Because this may also impact the performance, right? Somebody has many tabs open or is running some heavy applications. And what's more, that if we were to click on one of these steps, we can see details here. So if you were to look at the right side, for example, click on the business context, we see each field was with what value was populated. So let's say the first one is that the currency field, the USD currency was being populated. This may also be useful later on during the maintenance, but I think we'll be talking about this more later. But now in this process, when you are preparing for the transfer, you may see exactly what steps are being done, what the process exactly looks like, and decide, for example, that this is the perfect way, and you may register, use it as a reference process, right? That is the best variant, best execution of the process, and this is how it should look like in your Dynamics 365. Okay. So for now, at least for now, this is what I wanted to tell you about. Let's move back to the presentation.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
How does your software identify processes? Just
Looks
a
for
matter
common
of
behavioral patterns. This algorithm. It checks whether the pattern occurs more than once, checks how often it occurs, and those patterns which include similar steps or use similar forms. Actually, it uses also machine learning, right? It's involved here. So it learns actually what the behavioral patterns there are, then groups them into processes.
Each click is taking number of contextual data
So-
from the application, like the tens of different context from every click. Based on those contexts, we can aggregate those clicks into the process, because usually there is a value driven throughout the process.
So, as a functional consultant, there's two big limitations that I see here, and I would like your opinion on how. The first one is that the amount of clicks could be on the same forms, but the process could be different. Like creation of a new customer, you show me all the variants, so creation of a retail customer could be a different process than creation of a wholesale customer for the client. And you may not have a full understanding there until you actually have a look at all the variants, but most likely you still have to speak with the users to understand that. And so that's a limitation I see. You can see how often this is done, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that this is variants of the process. The other limitation that I see is that all the clicks in the system, I don't know if you record custom forms as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, by the way, could be incredibly poorly designed if the system got customized across years. So I've seen some abominations that
Yes.
but maybe later we can ask for stories. You're not mapping all the time spent on different software or retrieving data that is not in the software already. So going back to the example of creating a wholesale customer, there's a certificate or there's additional details that the users are keeping on Excel or remotely, so the user is gonna get up, walk for 30 minutes into the archive that is completely paper-based, and search for whatever, and then send it to the wholesaler and wait for the certification. That's not going to capture that. That is gonna
Yeah,
happen.
only the time will be shown that there is some longer time that is involved in a given step for a certain process, right? For example, those 30 minutes to look in Excel or maybe to have the comments written. Yeah, of course we do not capture that, but you know, you can see that something is being done there, that there is some reason, which of course you will need to look more into by asking the users why suddenly there is a gap of, let's say, as you said, 30 minutes there, right?
It could be worse than that. I've seen orders half typed in the system, picking up the phone and then completing the order the day after. So
Yeah. It's
there is
also,
a great potential for disruption.
yeah, but if the session cuts, so you know, the next day they fill it in the information. You know, for example, the session for sure the session will end, and our tool captures that and does not record the time. So there is not such that somebody spends 16 hours or 20 hours on that step. No, it's being cut, and then they pick it up.
Do you provide a report of all these cases and how they're different and so on?
Yeah. There's also a feature in the tool that for reporting purposes, you can even compare different users, or let's say they perform the same processes, and see how they do, how effective they are, what are the differences in their performances. The same goes for forms. You can also check how often they are used, how much time is spent on them, what processes they involve. This is also in the reporting section there. But it's mostly used for maintenance, right? Later on, after the upgrade is being done. And what you ask first about this discrepancy, that there might be very similar but different processes, like those creating a vendor account or creating customer account. This is also manageable with our tool. It's simply the sensitivity of the algorithm needs to be adjusted. Because for some, a process is simply creating an account for some companies, right? They do not care about different variants there. But for other, creating customer account, creating partner account, and creating, let's say, vendor account, completely different things. So by just adjusting this algorithm, you can get the results you want. Yeah.
All right, I will move forward.
So just a quick question. When you're doing those graphical sort of things, is there like a time slider on it? Can you kind of see it over a period of time?
Yeah, you can select a period of time in which you want to take a look at it. For example, you want 3 months or 2 months. You can narrow it down. Yeah.
You can see whether the process is improving actually. So
Yeah, exactly.
post go live,
Exactly, and with this reporting tool actually it shows you can, decide to see. This kind of works like a pivot in Excel, right? So you just decide which values you want to be shown, and you can check, for example, which processes over time, over months, how do they perform? Do they are better or worse?
Right, keeping the time, I will move forward. Right. Recapping quickly what Sylvia mentioned from the 2012 perspective and building these heat maps might be really useful in the upgrade, because in this phases when we are talking with the customer and deciding what is going to be upgraded, what not, what is a must for go live, what is not, then we can use this data from 2012 application to challenge business whether they really use this modifications, and you can imagine how powerful this tool may be. When it comes to the ending phases of the upgrade, you can use this tool because we've been talking on 2012 plugin right now, and we have the same plugin for 365. So to the web-based application, and here actually the use case we are using is that on the UAT business sometimes says that they tested, they tested and actually they didn't, or they did it not really well. So again, we can use this software on an environment of Dynamics 365, so we can use it on prod, but we can also use it on UAT. So we can use it, and again, quite powerful, telling the business that to check how they did it, what process has been tested, whether actually it has been tested or not. So this is another use case. So from here, we'll move to the another side of this capability. I mentioned that we can record mass users and we can also record a single user on the attended mode. So we are calling this RSAT on steroids. This is, you might have heard about executive automats. It's already a well-known solution, used worldwide. But with this idea to record a single user, use this script for different purposes, we may use this for different points in the upgrade process. And Bart, our product owner for those solutions, will tell you more about experiencers.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to switch to the two applications. There will be an executive automats and SSW called script to setup result. Executive automats idea is actually break the business, share the knowledge, and convert that into the test cases. So we wanted to create some kind of a bridge between IT and the business people, so they can easily transfer the knowledge about the process, so IT never has this. IT has this process. But what IT can do, IT can enhance the process with some advanced mechanisms, like extra steps or logic to verify results. So you can do negative tests, you can do some alternative paths of the process, which are verifying if the AP process of recording the invoice was correct, plus it verifies if the status and amounts are correct as well after the posting. So there are a lot of things you can do regarding the negative test as well, so to see how the system fails, just to make sure that the communication with the end user is correct as well. I'm going to jump into the application itself, just to show you how it looks like and how you can treat this, what exactly it is. On the main screen you see all scripts, and these are the business processes. We've actually discovered that UATs on the implementation process is a perfect place, or one of the most effective moments where to do those automations, because the process, the shape of the system is already known. Actually, the users are telling that this is exactly what they needed, and within the UATs we are recording these test cases. All of these test cases, they can be executed against all environments. So in executive automats, you set up your own pre-prod, dev, UAT environments, and then all the test cases, they can be executed across your systems. We also apply here virtual users, which are standing for AAT accounts. So when you are executing a business process, it actually logs in as you with your security on the system you wanted. So this simplification is just for the users, so they know they are actually just sharing the business process with us. The recording panel and the interaction is also, of course, as well simplified. When you are recording, right now I'm extending an existing process. You've got the steps list on the right-hand side. So system identifies all steps. You've got the capability of changing the data on the way. So if you selected customer A, you can very quickly change the customer to customer B or C, or apply Excel file. So in big organizations, and different nice case studies, we were able to build something like golden template or global template, where you've got one process which is used in Italy, Sweden, Finland, and we're modifying one test case. It applies to your whole organization. There are just small optional steps which are executed only in Finland, only in Sweden. So this gives you that reusability. Yeah? We believe that the test automation works only when you are capable of running one test case tens or hundreds of times. Without that, you can't actually benefit from it. So that's one of the biggest pluses. And of course, when you are actually recording, you can pause, you can add a lot into the test case. When you are playing back, on the other hand, you are able to play back and schedule the execution. So let's say Friday evening, I want to run our full regression cycle. So I've got about 10 hundreds of test cases. Friday evening, we are scheduling the regression, and then I've got one vision, one report which summarizes that. And what is very important, and I'm going to show you in just a moment, the execution is in background, because right now we see the player, we see the context. We are able to play the background and play multiple sessions. So I'm able to tell the system, please run the sales creation process on 700 sessions, which is leveraging that's the possibility to practically kill the AOS if you want. We want to do so big amount of transactions to see if after go live we are able to do actually to operate with this amount of users, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And as the session is quite short, I will not tell you a lot of these two solutions. I'll just show you briefly, but you will have a chance.
So, quick question.
Yeah.
Does it integrate with DevOps then?
It is.
Okay.
It is. We get a full integration with DevOps. We're actually, the way how it operates is it records every step of your finance and operations. You are able to outreach customer engagement, so CE. You are able to record CPOSs, so cloud point of sales, including even hardware station, which is quite interesting because you can simulate, you can record business process on CPOS as a front end, and in back end you can build a distribution schedule, you can build releases, a lot of stuff you can do with that. And from the case studies, we have a customer called Bestseller. They sell fashion industry, clothes and so on. There was one guy handling over 350 test cases with integrations, with data build, and just one man army. One person was handling full regression cycles for their company, which is significantly big. Anyway, we focus on the SSW because I want to show you my another kid. I'm actually responsible for both of those products, and that's a superb adventure we are doing lately with this as well. And we're going to have a few moments for Q&A. Also, we invite you to the booth downstairs. We can discuss more about these two little ones. SSW, this is another story we've created. You know, finance and operations, it is significantly complicated when it comes to licensing and security. It has power, you can do a lot, but you have to gain that knowledge, you have to be aware of all technicalities. We moved from the position where we didn't, we've been complaining about the licensing on our customer site, and we didn't know what to do. There was no Microsoft security development tool in FNO. So we decided to create something like that, and the idea is simple. We are going to the company which is having a problem with security or licensing. We are doing distribution of processes, so we want to identify what they do. Each position in the organization, we are doing that hierarchy to understand what they do, and then we are defining the organization hierarchy in the system on the left-hand side. Let me just browse to our example. And we're building the structure, which will just load it. Wi-Fi doesn't like in session. So we are trying to identify, let's say, sales department, warehouse department, and many others. We are distributing what people are working in which department. So what kind of type of the position, like sales manager, purchase manager, and so on. And underneath those those people, we are listing processes. So I'm talking to procurement manager, or let's say finally, let's say sales manager, and I want to identify what the person is doing. When I know what the person is doing, I'm able to record them in task recording if you don't have executive automates, or in executive automates, and I'm extracting the security context. I can identify practically all entry points which are in the specific process. So in that case, sales manager has 6 process under his position, and we are doing perfect tailored role for the position. Optimize user interface, optimize licensing, so you don't pay for operations if you don't need operations, you pay for team member or activity. So right now it is also basic FSCM and basic commerce, basic projects, it applies the same things. So you are simplifying the route of optimization of your security. And that's actually quite a game changer, because not only you can work with a company which doesn't have any kind of security and they are building this from scratch. You can do here fraud analysis, so find out if this is somebody doing something shady, or if somebody done something, you can see who else can do that. Plus you can do root cause analysis, why that person has so high licenses. And this is one of the options as well. This and much more we could show, but as mentioned, both of the products, actually 3 of our products, we can have a trial, so we can test it out, we can feel the value, browse it, and actually gain what is what you need the most. And I will just jump back for a second to the presentation. And as I was mentioning, if you're going to record about the test cases and you'll be able to run your tests over Friday night, you will see then your iterations. You see that we've got 45 successes for error messages, 49 to 1, 52 to 1. So you see how it progresses. You are able to react when something goes wrong. Just at a glance, you see exactly what was the problem. I mean, how many bugs we've got. Then integration with DevOps give you the potential to make a triage. So I'm allocating developer and sending straight from executable automates logs, guys, there is something wrong. And moving along quite quickly, as mentioned, UAT is one of the best places where you can do testing. And one of the biggest problems we'll see in the industry is that the testing is not concerned about security. So you are testing your system with an admin role, and you are not considering the fact that the user with smaller access might have a problem because one of the new developed function is not handled by his role. So significant problem, significant chance or occasion to generate bugs. Performance tests. I was mentioning quickly that you were able to execute test cases in parallel. And this is an example of customer on tier 5 environment with 12 AOSs, 6 for business operations, 6 for batch. And this was a nightmare because this was 650 sessions in parallel. We were able to kill the environment practically. The response time was about 30 seconds. So with that setup, the organization couldn't actually work. This was the setup for go live. And if the company would start the first day with this setup, it will be disaster. Yeah? So we schedule a call analysis, we run the tests, we of course make the refinement by adding new AOSs, by adding more hardware, and then finally after running the test, we were able to fix the problem. If you were considering test cases, the performance project, you should consider this before go live, and after each rollout, this is iterative project which we have to do. It applies also for the premises, and we've proved multiple times that one of the most problem is that the load balancing is not set properly. And one of the AOSs is skyrocketing, the other one is just waiting for something to happen. Then the second one gets hit, and then both of them they die. So different things we find out, but the executive automates can give you the chance to do these type of challenges to the environment to see if you are actually able to work with it. Yeah, and this will actually lead for market science about the stages of yours.
Right, so again, quickly to recap what was mentioned by Bartosz, with EA, or maybe we are running out of time. So we are moving to the maintenance, and here both of solutions again we might find some values for the customer, for the application. So from a mass recording perspective, mentioned already by Sylvia, we may just work on those processes to improve, right? Either from process improvement or looking for automation opportunities. What is also a case with our customers, there are sometimes those bugs that has happened. The user doesn't really know what happened, and he can't really explain to the IT team what has been clicked. So again, we are recording everything and everywhere and every click. So if this is the case, and the IT department want to understand what has been used, then we can recreate this situation from the prod to any other environment. So we can actually recreate this hidden bug. And again, on the RSAT, Bartosz will be talking about testing and one version. So I'll just Sylvia.
Okay. So coming back to Executive Explorer, yeah, well, continuous refinement, it is something that our Explorer is mostly, useful for. I'm not sure whether you are familiar with such, methodologies as lean management, Six Sigma, or maybe quality management. But all those methodologies have one thing in common. They say constantly improve your processes. keep constant improvement. So it's that cycle, not just once done job, right? Okay, you made a transfer, you made an upgrade, but and a great job, there's open champagne and so on, but you know, after some time, those processes will change. And so what generally those lean management and similar methodology say is that you should treat it as a cycle. So first, look into your processes, analyze them, look for opportunities for enhancing them, for optimization. Try to implement optimization and check whether it worked or not, and repeat the whole process once over again. So let's say that we've decided before what processes to transfer, how to optimize them to work better. We've made assumptions, and now after a few weeks or months, we can check whether those assumptions were correct. And unfortunately, generally when it comes to a transfer up to a different system, those assumptions are more often wrong than correct, right? Because we didn't take into consideration many of factors such like the user's experience. Yeah, it is very difficult for some users to quickly learn a new tool. But yeah, then with our Executive Explorer, you can check whether those new processes are more efficient than the old ones, and you may check even on which steps they are more efficient, or maybe they are less efficient, right? And by checking it, what happened, what is the issue there, you may decide on further optimization here. And yeah, and the more time you maybe ignore this, the more this issue, the more changes will happen to your processes. It is that they change constantly. Business changes, the environment changes. So what our tool will do, it will record these changes as they happen. Because it records live, it records constantly, never stops. So you might see the whole evolution process of what behaviors and how they change. And you may react accordingly, right? Right away. You learn after 2 years, but maybe after a few months you will be able to do that. And why actually? What value brings? Why should you think about continuous refinement of processes? Well, to save money, right? With the more of the optimal process, the less it costs, to save time, but also there is employee satisfaction importantly. So how important is employee satisfaction to your company, right? Because, well, generally, as it turns out, Dynamics is not very pleasant tool, right? It is complex, there are so many fields, people get lost, scared of it, and it oftentimes it happens that they say they don't like it, they complain, why do they have to use it? Before it was easier, now it's more complex, and to actually consider their opinion and to try to work with them on really finding those issues they have and trying to optimize them, it makes their employee satisfaction brings it on a higher level. And with that, of course, the time optimization and cost optimization will follow, right? So simply by taking a look at those patterns, behavioral patterns, you can determine how to optimize processes. Maybe some people are, better at getting familiar with the system. They may be the ones who should be treated as the source of knowledge and maybe as teachers to others, right? But you will see it all there. Those who perform better than others. And not in a way to compare you are bad and you are good and give like at school gives grades, but just simply to share this knowledge across your company so that everyone has the best experience is possible for the use of Dynamics. And with that, I think I would be ending this showcase about Explorer. But if you have any questions or if you want to take a look, come to see us at our booth. We can talk more. I can show you some business cases, some interesting cases our customers had. They were able to save 10,000s of hours annually on small process upgrades, so optimization. So if you are interested, please come and see me there. We'll be there also tomorrow, so if you don't have time today, so I'll be waiting for you. But please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So one question: if you're not founder and you are still exact fan, me too. Exact actually one of the things which was not included in that, and that was actually fun because you were the master of the application and nobody told you what to update that. Now you've got a beautiful schedule of having minimum 3 updates each year to deliver the updated version of Dynamics, and you have to consider actually regulatory packages, KB packages, and ISVs, so extensions you've got. And this actually brings you to the number of 4 and average 5 updates per year. Massive amount. And if you're gonna add the cherry on the top of the all piles of the documents the business needs to file, it's practically impossible to test in the non-automatic manual way. Plus, there's something which not everybody talks about. It is that when you test the application on the very early moment and your testing cycle is very long, you may end up in testing not exactly the application you're going to roll out to your system, because KB package, which is package which starts in between those 2 dates, will actually change the system. So manual testing with this amount is practically impossible, or this puts you on a danger of bugged environment, and we've seen that quite a bit of time. And when you think about all the aspects of the lifetime of your application, you have to do when the process change, global, local, so global process, understanding by having the same process in different entities, Italy, Finland, Sweden, and so on, will just duplicate the amount of process documentation update, regression of the frameworks update, and security setup update. And we came up with this idea that the synergy is actually on the process side. So changing of the script is something which you need to do, and this synergy gives you regression framework update, so your testing is actual, is adequately testing your entire ecosystem. Out of that, you've got process documentation. Actually, the process documentation for us was a side effect because we are collaborating with highly regulated industries like aviation, military, and pharmaceuticals. So we had to do the evidence of testings, and this actually follows that. Then when you've got your scripts, so you've got the coverage, you've got the test cases, which means processes, you can build up security out of that. So you've got one thing, and you were able to build the security. And then performance testing, and before go live, after go live, actually these are one of the essences you have to do to maintain healthy environment for the future. And with that being said, finally, we'd like to thank you so much for coming to this session. And as mentioned, if somebody is eager to tell us a story about implementation, we point for a funny one, but you can tell about the worst scenarios which you've seen. There was a whiskey smoker dedicated for Scotland, Scotch whiskey, for people. We've got 2 of them more, but they're going to be picked on this booth tomorrow. So, is there anybody who could share some stories? You were react today.
One of the funniest implementations I experienced. There were major holes in the design of the solution. The company implementation partner kept working, the client kept working alongside things, and they were getting closer to go live without actually being ready. By not being ready, I mean that at the time of UAT, the processes were not defined, and I was assisting a couple of users there who didn't even have the user in the system. So I created that on the go, and they weren't even sure exactly how to navigate that. And the funny thing is that because this was escalated so much, there were strong political reasons not to admit that they were not ready for go. So the partner could not say that, the client could not say that. So this was before COVID, so we were on site at the time in preparation for go live. And go live was supposed to be on a Monday, and the tacit assumption was that, yeah, things are going, even if the whole team knew that. And so on Friday, being locally with the client, they were all cheering to the go live on Monday, which then didn't happen, and they ended up in court because obviously you had so much accumulation and then everything went down. It was very symbolic of how you don't openly address things and they keep building throughout the duration of the implementation.
That's true.
It was surreal to see how they were all ready to go, but everybody knew that they were not ready, but nobody could say it. So.
We are hitting that wall. It's gonna just gonna be ruined. That's true. I mean,
Awesome. Thank you.
That's funny. Nobody else would like to share. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard about Lidl implementation of SAP. Who heard about? So they invested 500 million euros for putting the SAP in the ecosystem. And it took about, I don't know, 2.5 years, and actually they failed. Everything was actually not properly architected. And this was one of the biggest fails of the ERP systems because they actually burned their money.
That's because they didn't have it at all.
That's because they didn't invest in Microsoft. On the other hand, we've seen SAP, the SAPA group, the company in Czechoslovakia in Hungary. This was one of the projects we were supporting from the testing perspective. And actually, the funny thing was that they had 8 test managers and they had a team of 100 people. And in the mid-moment of the implementation, they said, all right, we want to move to SAP. And everything what they've done, they actually froze. I don't know, like, the management decided, so like I said, some political things. Thank you so much. It was a huge
Thank you.
pleasure.